What's up guys, Blacksmith here. I'm making a video today trying to explain to you how to go from small bankroll to hopefully much larger bankroll. The steps that it takes to get there, and more importantly, all of the things that you should be doing and setting in place at the beginning to make sure that you continue down the right path. I speak to loads of people every single day, and very few of them are going to end up actually making money sports betting. And most of the time it's not because they can't find winning plays. It's not because they can't find winning cappers like me and my footy tipster. It's because they're not managing their bankroll. They don't know what their expectations should be, and they're just assuming, which leads to things like trying to chase really big wins, overcommitting on your bankroll. There's so many different pitfalls, but we're going to go through one by one how you should set it up so that you can win. And the main thing that you should know right off the bat is you should be betting like a professional. If you don't know how professionals bet, it's only one Google search away. A lot of people in this, like, I'm going to call it a hobby for most people. Most people have it as a hobby, they do it for fun, and then a small amount of people think, do you know what, I want to make an income from this. But they don't do the research. I ask people when they come up to me, and I can tell that they're quite green, probably not ready for a service like mine. Some of the alarm bells for me to turn someone away rather than sign them up as a client would be, oh, how do I place bets? You know, what's a unit size? Someone said, another capper actually said this earlier this week. I thought it was a bit blunt and harsh, but it was completely true. He said, look, no one's going to hold your hand through the process. It's up to you to learn the basics. And I agree with that, but at the same time, I think it's good to be able to have someone, like a capper, if you're signing up to their service, who is going to respond to you and can answer questions, because that really is the difference between success and failure most of the time. You can search online to find the basics, but your experience in actually implementing them and asking people who know more than you, that's what's really it's gonna fast track your progress. So the first thing you have to know, if you've got a bankroll of under £1,000, you are very, very new to sports betting. You're in the early stages. You're not really going to be making serious money. You could be making okay money. So the first thing you've got to do is work out a bankroll management strategy. The one that I use and most people use is the unit betting system. So the unit system, rather they call it. So that is where your bankroll, and your bankroll is the total amount of money you have to bet. So you might have 10 different betting accounts of £100 in each. That would mean your bankroll is £1,000. You might have £1,000 set aside somewhere in a different bank account, and that's just what you put into your betting account as and when you need it. That would be your bankroll, £1,000. It's the amount of money you've got just to bet with. And every size of bankroll, it doesn't matter if you've got £1 million in it or £100, one unit is 1% of that. So you need to know what your unit size is first of all. So if one unit is 1% and you've got £1,000, that's £10 per unit. So the biggest mistake people make is betting too much money. And I understand, look, you want to get rich quickly, but understand, the bigger your bets are, the more vulnerable you are to being wiped out. And what happens with most people who are amateurs at sports betting, they put a load of money in, they want to make a load of money quickly, and sometimes they'll do very well, but as soon as you have a bad period, and look, everyone is going to have a losing period. Even professionals who are the best in the world will have months where they lose money. Weeks where you lose money is common as well. And they may even have a day or two where they just have loss after loss after loss. In our free group, a while ago, we actually had close to 20 wins in a row. Then we had 10 losses in a row, back to back. It happens. Sometimes that's just the way that the chips fall. You know, you can have, out of 100 bets, you could have 80 of them win, but you could have 20 all come at the same time. It's quite unlikely, but it is going to happen eventually. So if you're betting long enough and you're over leveraging yourself and betting too much money, you are going to have a period where you have just loads of losses, and it's going to disproportionately affect you in the long run. If you look at all your bets, if you're betting really big, it's only going to take a small amount of losses to absolutely annihilate your bankroll. So the important thing to remember is with your unit size, each bet should be 1 to 5% of your bankroll. Now, I do sometimes bet more than 5%. It's very rare, but sometimes we do. I would say a handful of times a year. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is an example. That was a super max. I was going to say 10 units, but the truth is I bet way more than 10 units because I was so confident. I tipped it as 10 units in my group because I was willing to take a very big risk, but I didn't want to recommend that to people who follow me because I promote responsible gambling. If you want to ever bet more, that's your decision, but you should never really be betting more than 10% of your bankroll, in my opinion. That was a unique situation. I believe it was basically a fixed fight. I'm not going to get into that now, but you should not be betting bets that large very often, maybe a handful of times a year. At the moment, I actually have a 7.5 unit, so I would call this a super max, anything above 5 units. I've got that. I've got a very good line on it. It is another combat sport bet, and there have been negotiations leading up to the fight that greatly favour one fighter in terms of like the weight class, all other rule sets, and that fighter should win anyway. The books mispriced the line. We got a great line. You can still get a pretty good line, but we got in early, and that's why we bet so much, because it was just such a good opportunity. But you're rarely going to be betting that big. Most of your bets should be 1 to 3 units, and then every now and then, maybe like a couple times a week, you will find something to hit with 4 or 5 units to give you an idea. That's what you should really be betting. Most of my bets are 1 to 1.5 units. I'm very conservative and low risk. The tipster who I run my service with, the footy tipster, he's high risk. He bets a lot, he bets aggressively. That's his style. We're both very different in that aspect. So there's no right or wrong way. You've got to work out from your own personal risk tolerance what you're willing to do. I'm more established than him, so my bankroll has been built over a much longer period of time, so I'm more careful with it. He is someone who has had a very quick rise. He became professional very, very quickly, and he's got very, very good. So he's making the most of it, and fair play to him because it works for him. You've got to figure out what works for you. Probably the biggest thing I would go to next with unit size, you don't just want to think about the cold hard maths. Think about psychologically, is it something that you can handle? Because if your sports betting experience is affecting your life, if you've got a job and this is a part-time thing, you're trying to make a second income, which will be true if you've got less than £1,000 in your bankroll. If you are worrying about your bets, if you're struggling to sleep at night, if you've got a bet overnight, if you've got a load of money risk during the day and you're at work thinking about it, you're betting too much. So maybe you need to bet less than 1%. Maybe you need to bet 0.5. Earlier last year, sorry, I quit my day job because I started making more money sports betting. And I was betting huge amounts of money at first, like very, very big sums. And I was winning. So you might think, well, why is that a problem? It was a problem because I wasn't sleeping. If I had a bet on at 3 in the morning, I would have to stay up and watch it because I was betting so much money. If it lost, it was a lot of money to me and it affected me. Even though I had a big bankroll and it wasn't really the end of the world, just psychologically, I couldn't deal with the stress. So even though I had very good results, after about 3 months of doing this, which was a long time, by the way, to stomach, it just wasn't worth it anymore. And I reduced my bankroll, not my bankroll, I reduced my unit size by about 60%. I did make less profit, but one thing that happened as a result of that, my ROI, so my performance, increased significantly. And it's because I wasn't stressed out anymore. When you bet huge sums of money, you tend to try and pick the safest option, and the safest option is usually the worst value in sports betting. So making sure that you're not emotionally attached, that you're not stressed out and nervous, it will stop you from making bad decisions, and it will make you take those plays that are profitable but are less likely to hit, the underdogs, the correct scores in some cases, where you've got a very high odd and maybe the chance of hitting is lower, but it's profitable long term. If you're betting too much per unit, you will not take those amazing bets. So be very conscious of that. You need to be thinking clearly without emotions, without stress, to actually profit in sports betting. Otherwise, you will end up getting addicted to the thrill of the chase. You end up getting very emotional. It will negatively impact your life, and that's how you end up with a gambling addiction. So be very careful from that. So the next thing we're going to talk about bookies. A lot of people don't do this, and it's probably the most basic thing you can do right now to increase your profit. And that is, you should have multiple bookies. You should be using a website like Odds Checker to find the best odds. Today I went to lock a bet in, I searched the odds on Odds Checker, I got it for about 0.20 higher than what I was gonna bet. Most bets that you take, guys, your edge is gonna be less than 10%. So the probability of the odds and the actual probability of the event, assuming you have an edge and you can pick winning bets, you're only gonna have, 6 or 7%, maybe even less than that of an edge. So getting the best odds makes a huge difference long term, but most people are too lazy. They just use one book. And books like Bet365 that used to have really good odds, they're starting to realize this now and give really bad odds for certain games or for certain bets. Like Bet365, for example, on their player props in football are now terrible. They used to be fantastic, they're poor. Also, they do this with American sports. If you're betting on American football, for example, they won't give you -3, they'll give you -3.5. And you might think that's only a 1 point difference, but so many games end by exactly 3, that will increase your chances of losing very significantly. Depending on the matchup, it could be as high as 10%. So be very careful. Which book you're choosing can have a huge advantage. And if you check your profit long term, it will be a massive difference. Most professionals make 3 to 6% ROI, okay, per week. So if you're gonna go and get 10% worse odds, that is your profit right there for most professionals. So the maths alone explains how important that is. That brings me on to the next point though. Knowing what is realistic and what is realistically achievable is the most important thing when you start out. If you think you can 10x your money, I'm sorry, you're gonna end up going broke. You're gonna be chasing returns that aren't possible. So many people have these false expectations, and I don't know where they come from. People say things like, oh, I just feel like I should be able to double my money every day. If you could double your money every day, you'd be the richest human being on earth in a few weeks, because it would compound so much. So just think about it logically. Most people who are professionals make 3 to 6% ROI. So if you're good, you might make 10%. If you're one of the best, you might make 20% or more. So use that as a target and understand the way people make a good income is they build their bankroll to a point where 5% a week is a huge amount of money. If you've got 100K, 5% is 5,000. So $5,000, £5,000 a week profit, tax-free, it's not bad, is it? That's how it works. But when you start out, that's not going to seem like a good return. So you've got to stick with it and play the long game. And that brings me on to the next part. I spoke about this a bit before, and that was about the edge you have on your bet. If you're just starting out, understanding odds is probably the most important thing for you. Most people who sports bet understand the sport really well. It's how they get into betting. But the odds is where you're going to make your money. So you can go and use a calculator. The Action Network, I think, is the best one. It's the odds calculator. You type in the odd there, you can put in any odd in any format, and it will give you the implied probability. Now, you only want to be taking the bet if you, from what you handicap and you've done your analysis, and you judge the probability of that bet hitting is higher than the percentage of that odd. So you type in your odd. If it's 2.00, that's basically saying this hits 50% of the time. You should only be taking that bet if you believe that that bet hits more than 50% of the time. And obviously you want a bit of a margin of error as well, because we're not machines, we're not going to be exactly right. But that's how you bet in a nutshell. That's the most simple explanation of how you should sports bet. With underdogs, that's why they're so profitable. We bet and cashed Real Madrid live at 7.0 decimal odds, 6 to 1. Yes, they were down. Did we think they would come back? Probably not. But at 6 to 1, they only need to come back and win, what, 1 out of 5 times for that to be profitable. And one of the best striking elements in the world, they 100% can do that. And they will do that more than 1 in 5 times is what we judged. And it paid off. We made a ton of units from that. So make sure you're checking the implied probability of your odds until you understand what each odd correlates to. I actually have a chart, it's over there, I should have brought it here, but It's a big chart I printed off and laminated that has all of the odds, and it has different waypoints or different milestones. And that's how I learned. I had that in front of me every day for about a year. So I just always saw it and it became second nature to me. So this brings me on now to maintaining your unit size. So people ask me this all the time. They say, when should I increase my units? From what I found personally, whenever I felt like I should be increasing my units, that's when I was always due a loss, because that probably means that my confidence is sky high, which is when you've had a load of wins. It's not when you've had a load of losses. You're thinking about betting more when you've had a win after win after win. It's going really, really well. So for me personally, I prefer to keep my unit size the same amount for a very long time, maybe 3 months at least. And if I've had a really good run, waiting it out after that for a little bit to see how things are going. And a lot of this time as well, I personally believe this is due to fatigue. I think maybe not everyone, but I know for me personally, I can work in bursts where I might have 3 amazing weeks and then I might have a bad week. And that's usually because when we've had a really good week, we're kind of fatigued and we take our foot off the gas a little bit. It's just a human trait. We're aware of it. We try and overcome it. But it's something that I notice all the time. When people start betting more, they start losing. So I know it's hard when you're starting because you want to make as much money as possible, but try and maintain your unit size for a longer period of time and then increase it, or increase it very minutely and very slowly. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So this is a big one that I'd see so many people not doing. Track, this should be underlined really because it's so important. Track your profit loss. You should be tracking your plays. You should have a spreadsheet when you put all of your plays in. In our VIP, every week I post a spreadsheet of all of our plays. It can show you what won, what lost, how much profit it made. I actually went back and looked at mine this morning, and I found that there were certain types of plays that I wasn't doing very well at. So I'm probably going to do less of those bets and do more of the bets that are making me profit. I found that football totals in particular were doing very well for me. So I need to do more of those types of bets. But also I need to improve on the other bets that weren't doing as well. Without tracking, you cannot see this data. And without tracking, you never really know how well you're doing. You're just going to have a feel. The other thing with tracking is it stops you from taking really silly bets. I've reviewed a load of people's betting accounts because they say, look, I've been following your bets, I'm making money, but I feel like I should be making more. I don't know why. So many of these people, when I go into their account, they place loads of little bets and they don't realize it's adding up and it's taking all their profit away. Don't fall into that trap. Make sure you're only placing bets that are well researched or at a plus EV when you see a good opportunity, and write it down, because then you can go back and see. I mark all of my live bets and non-live plays so I can see, are my live bets profitable? Are they doing well? Are they not? If they're not, then I need to pause and be more, scrutinize the live plays more. Perhaps think about them a lot more before I play them. This is something that if you don't track, you'll just be going by feel, and feel is not a way to win in sports betting. You need data, you need to know for a fact, not through how you feel. That's how a lot of people get into problems in sports betting. They just go by how they think it should work, how they feel like it's going, and our brains are very good at misleading us. This is why when people get a few wins, they go crazy and start betting really big, because they get overconfident. And it's also why bookies like giving you boosts, and they like giving you good boosts that will win quite often, because they want to give you a win, because it will give you that dopamine release, it will make you overconfident, and it will make you bet more. This is why as well, if you go to somewhere like Ascot, any horse race track, you'll notice the first few days, everyone seems to be winning. The favourites, the horses that are tipped and rumoured to win, that are boosted, they're all winning. The last couple of days, they've built that confidence up, they're going to smash you. And that's when they take all the profit back. The last day is when most people lose everything. So be very conscious of that. Now, the other part that I see people making a mistake is not learning. Every day is a school day in sports betting. It's a learning experience. There are things that I don't understand still. I'm looking at building models at the moment. I have no idea how to do it, but you've got to at least try and start learning these sort of things. It might take you years to learn, but you need to start getting grip to it. Once you start a new subject, it could be a new area of sports betting that you've never explored before. At first, you're not really going to understand it. But as you get more and more practice, or as you talk to people about it more and more, you're going to start to put the pieces together. So You need to have patience. That's why right above it I've put wait. You need to wait, be patient, and understand that it's not going to happen overnight. It took me years to actually start making a profit. I lost loads of money sports betting before I even started to find people and speak to people who knew how to do it properly. And I was just guessing before then. So I understand what it's like, but you've got to approach this like any other skill. It takes study, it takes time and practice to get good. There's no point in rushing it because you're just going to lose money. Once you start making profit, it's time to do it slowly and steadily. And remember, anyone can make profit over a short period of time. That anyone can have a good month or two. But it's more about long-term profit. Once you've had 3 months on the trot and profit, you can be pretty confident that you know what you're doing. And then it's time to start advancing, learning more, and build on that. And then the big one, the types of bets, guys. If you look at the moment what bookies are doing, in the States especially, I think it might be DraftKings have this special at the moment where they're boosting ACCAs or parlays. They're boosting the odds massively. There's a massive reason for this. It's because they're so profitable. Every new selection introduces another bit of variance in there. I posted something a while ago that showed, I think it was FanDuel, they made something like 87% of their profit on parlays. The rest was from singles. That just shows you how profitable parlays are for the bookie, not for you. Professionals basically exclusively bet singles, sometimes doubles as well. Every now and then a triple, but that's quite rare. Most professionals just bet singles and doubles. So that's what you want to do. By all means, have some fun bets. You can have fun parlays, but don't think that you're going to make a lot of money from them. You might every now and then, but because people don't track their plays, they're not aware of how much money they've lost before they have that win. It's usually a lot, but it's death by 1,000 cuts. A tenner here, £20 there, $100 here, $2 there, $4. It adds up and up and up over time. And then when you win $500 or whatever it is, you don't realize that you've put 2,000 into that. Now, this is the other thing that I wanted to cover. I mentioned this before about your risk tolerance. You've got to find out what works for you. But one thing is inescapable when you first start and you've got a small bankroll. The more volume you can do, the more quickly you're going to grow your bankroll. Once you've got an edge and you know that you can make profit, as long as you commit and make the research or make time to do the research, you want higher volume. You want to have high volume. Professional sports bettors who sit down and treat this like a job all day, they're sitting down in front of a desk, betting. For us, when we're running a group, the goal is to make it easy to follow. So we're not going to post 50 bets during the day because most people are at work. They're not going to be able to follow that. We're going to post bets in the evening, in the morning, and then maybe again when lineups are released before games. But if you're a professional sports bettor and you're looking to make profit, increasing your volume is the quickest way to increase your profit. So a good example would be, for our service, we've got the syndicate. The syndicate is making about 30% ROI at the moment, which is insane. I will add asterisks before anyone says anything. The syndicate's been going 10 weeks. So who knows what it will be long term. 30% ROI is very hard to achieve long term. But I will also say that 30% is from our best bets. We can only find about 100 units worth of bets a week. So yes, the ROI is high, but we're limited by how many of those bets we can find. With standard VIP, our volume is extremely high. We might, and remember there's 2 of us here, so it's not as high as it seems, but we might bet 300 or 400 units a week in standard VIP with 10% ROI. But we're betting our bankroll again and again and again. So that 10%, if we're betting 300 units, that can be the same as the ROI from the syndicate. But it's more bets, it's more time, it's harder to follow. But as a professional gambler, we're just sitting down handicapping all day. It's a bit like, if you can make money sports betting, you've got an edge, you can consistently do it. It's like having a shop. If you have a shop that's open and it makes money every hour it's open, why would you only open it for 1 hour a day? This is what a lot of cappers do. They just have 3 or 4 plays, and that's because they don't make money from sports betting. They make money from selling their tips only. If you're a professional sports bettor, you want to be betting as much as possible to make as much money as possible. This is also why we have trouble taking days off, because you want to take a Sunday off, you think, but I would probably make a good £400 or £500 profit if I bet today. So I don't want to take it off. And this is why it's hard, and me and the footy tips have to make ourselves take a day off, usually Monday. We still put plays in for the day when we have days off and the other one covers, but it's hard. So that's also something you've got to manage, is your mental fatigue. But don't kid yourself in thinking that you're one of these tipsters who just has 2 or 3 bets a day. If you're really established and you've got a massive bankroll, of course you can do that. Because if you're betting, $1,000 at a time, then yeah, that's equivalent to someone here betting 100 bets, at £10 a time. But the more volume you have, the more money you'll accumulate. Now, there's a way around this. If you don't want to have that high volume and you prefer the low volume approach, you're going to have to increase your bankroll another way, because your bankroll is going to grow so much slower than if you had high volume. So the way to do it then is by dollar cost averaging. Just like in investing, dollar cost averaging is when you have a payment every month that goes into your principal, into your bankroll in this case. So every month I used to have £500 go straight into my betting account to build it up, so that it grew from 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000. And then the profit was also bumping it up, but it made my percent return gradually increase a lot faster than if I just grew the bankroll organically. That is your fast track to success, but you only want to be doing that once you've made consistent profit for multiple months in a row. And that's the last thing I've mentioned. That dollar cost averaging really is the thing that most people fail to do. They want to build their bankroll just through profit alone, but that is the way to supercharge it and to get there a lot quicker. Most people drop out or fail in sports betting because they try and get to the finish line too quickly, and they try and bet more recklessly. They try and bet for huge returns. What you should be trying to do is the same as investing. You should be using your principal for a smaller percent return, but continuously. At the moment in our VIP, we're on the best run we've ever had. 18 weeks on the row in profit for standard VIP. We've had weeks where we've had 100 unit profit. We've had multiple weeks like that. More recently, we've had just gradual success, like 40 units here, 20 units there on different weeks. But that builds up and builds up and builds up. And that consistency is what you're really looking for in sports betting, not those big 100 unit wins. Those will come when you have big weeks, but you're more looking to take a small risk with your money, and you're taking a small risk by only betting 1 to 5% of your bankroll. And if you bet 100 units, you're going to make 5 units to 10 units return on average. Every now and then you might make 20. Sometimes you might make a 10 unit loss. But then at the end of the month, you're going to be up, say 40 units, something like that. And that doesn't sound like a lot when you're starting off with £1,000. But when you get to £10,000, which can happen a lot quicker than you think, suddenly that's £400 a month. And 40 units in a month isn't a good month. For us, that's a good week. So you can make a huge amount of money, but you've got to stick with it and you've got to go through that initial period. So my advice would be, if you've got 1,000, do these things. Sort your unit size out, get all your bookies in order so you've got multiple betting accounts so you can always place the bet on the best line. If you don't have an account with a bookie and they've got the best line, it takes literally a few minutes, maybe like 90 seconds to sign up and set a betting account up. So there's no excuse to be lazy. And use odds checker to check that you're getting the best lines. Hold on to your unit size longer than you think you need to. Be patient, wait, always learn. Make sure you understand the probability of the odds, probably the most important thing, because without that, you cannot sports bet successfully. Stick to singles and doubles. Figure out if you want to go low volume or high volume or a hybrid of the two. The other thing I didn't mention with high volume is you will get more reps in, so you will learn a lot faster as well. So also consider doing some practice with very small bets, but betting more often, because you'll get better practice at doing the analysis, whether that's the match or the lines that you're looking at. That's a huge advantage of high volume. And it's how I actually learned. I took 5 months off work and I just sports bet for 5 months, and I improved so much in that time. I made way more money at the end of that period than at the start, because I just got so much better at it. And then dollar cost average every month, keep topping that bankroll up once you're making profit, because that's just going to supercharge it. And guys, a lot of people want to take money out of their account, but listen, it's like when you're investing. If you're getting 20% or 10% return on your money, if you take the money from the principal out, that 10% is going to be smaller. You want to be putting more money in because you've got a money machine that's going to keep making money. So when you take money out, you're actually hurting yourself. You're taking money away from your future self. So dollar cost average, build that principal up and absolutely smash it. If you don't want to do all of that, if you want to just pay for someone else to do all the hard work for you, tell you exactly what to bet, go to the syndicate. I've just actually spoke about in the group how tomorrow starts a season for rugby. I'm not a big rugby fan at all, but it's a market, and I probably shouldn't be saying this now thinking about it on a public video, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's a market where there's not many sharps in there. It's been neglected by the betting community, so you can find amazing value. You can make an absolute fortune. We've got about 15 bets, a lot of them max bets, for the next week in rugby, just because we cannot believe how good the lines are. You're not going to find that with NFL or soccer, football or NBA, because there's too many people betting it, so they need the lines to be accurate. So this is the other thing. Look for niches, look for opportunities within the market. But if you don't want to do that, like I said, go into our Telegram, sign up to our service, and you'll make a ton of money.